Hi, this is Andrew with Bike, and you might have noticed there's a bunch of bike stands here. I invited my friends over, had them bring their bike stands so that we could drink beer and figure out what the best bike stand is. We kind of lined them up from cheapest on the my right to the most expensive over here with the Park Tool stand, and we're just going to walk through kind of the features of each bike stand, what you can do with it, the limitations, and all of that. So let's get started over here. So this is the Conquer portable bike stand. It's 70 bucks on Amazon. It is missing a piece, so can't hold that against it this time, but my friend should be more careful with his bike stuff. So the first thing I'm going to measure here is the throw, which is how much the clamp moves when you close the lever here. So at the widest, let's just call it 54 millimeters, and then I close it, and we go down to 34. So that's about 20 millimeters. So basically, that's not a whole lot of space. The grabber here is 107.2 millimeters, and then it goes really, really wide. I don't have it at its widest setting, but just at this, whatever setting this is, that's already 63 millimeters. The next most important thing is your different clamping angles and how easy it is to move from like a seat post grab, which is what we have it set up to here, to top tube grab. In that case, you just move, you can loosen this bit here, and it turns pretty easily. One of the challenges of this bike stand and some of the other bike stands here is that because this is solely a friction grab, you can run into some issues, although carbon assembly paste goes a long way to fixing that problem. So let's just throw it into our seat post grab, and then we'll grab the fat bike, which weighs about 35 pounds. Put it in here and close it up. And this is where that throw kind of becomes a challenge, because on a wider seat post, you're going to have to throw it, hold the bike, and then tighten with this wing nut on here. Let me just loosen this up to pivot it up. And tighten it nice and tight. And you can see here that it is able to hold the bike and not have to make it go down. Now, that said, when I work on a bike, I do generally want that extra stability, if I can make that loose again. I do like to have the stability of having the front tire on the ground, so, but you do need to be able to move it that way from time to time. So this is actually, I think, a pretty good bike stand, assuming that you keep all the parts. So this is the Spin Doctor Pro G3 stand. It also can do both a top tube or seat post grab. What's really nice about this one, and I'll show a photo of this, I'll put a photo up of this up here, is it has teeth. So if it's in place, you lock this thing into place, it's not going anywhere. Unlike some of the purely friction mounts, this is going to be very secure from that perspective. So I have this out as wide as I can make it. It does not have a closing clamp, so there's no throw to measure. So the thing that matters is the gap from these 2 points. So looking at that, it's 41.3 millimeters. So if you have a seat post that is wider than 41.3 millimeters, this is not going to work. One of the other challenges with this clamp is because of the orientation of this clamp, it's really only going to work very well with round seat posts. If you have a seat post that's D-shaped, you're not going to be able to put it in here properly. You're going to have to clamp on the side of the seat post. I'm going to show you that real quick. So this is my Tarmac D-shaped seat post. If I orient this way, like I would want to put the bike in, this is how I would have to clamp the seat post. And what I want to do, and what I do with every other clamp, is to clamp it this way so that the pressure is on the outside of the seat post, because seat posts are designed to take most of the force this way, not so much of the force that way. Okay, so I've dragged the fat bike over, and this is one place that I really don't like about this style, where because you have to spin it, you can't close it. Getting the bike in there, you have to hold a heavy bike up and close it at the same time. And I know I'm blocking the frame here. And so here we go. One of the things that kind of concerns me a little bit is how easy it is, because of how you clamp this, to make the stand, to unsettle the stand. And maybe if I move this a little bit like that, it's still really easy to unsettle it. So this is the Bikehand. It's about $120. You can get this on Amazon. It does have a throwable clamp, and the width of that throw, it goes from 44.8 to 29.1, so about 14 millimeters of throw. So that's actually pretty good. It makes it a little bit easier. And also, when you're closing it, you can spin it with one finger, which makes it a lot easier to work with when you're clamping a heavy bike. Because of the shape of this, it's going to be really easy to put a D-shaped seat post in there. It also has the teeth on here, so as you're moving it from the top tube to a seat post orientation, I'll put a photo up there of the teeth. Once it's locked into place, it's not going anywhere. All right, so let's try with a fat bike now. Okay, so it did hold the fat bike. Oh shit, shit.
Is this part of the story?
Something's not right with this. And it's reasonably stable. It is a little bit light. And I think the weight of the stand, it's fine. It's totally fine, but I think the weight of the stand might be one of those things that if you were to really crank on this, it would come forward. But I think that might be the kind of thing that if you noticed it, you could put some weight on the back here, and that should sort out the stability issues. So for 120 bucks, that's probably not that bad, especially considering that you can spend a lot more money than that on a stand. So this is the Feedback Sports stand. It is around $200. It also has the twisty kind, so no, it doesn't have throw. It just has what you can take it out to. And that number is 45.8, so a little bit wider than the other one. But 45.8 millimeters is as wide as it can go. It also, because of the shape of the clamp, has exactly the same problem if you have a D-shaped seat post. The rounds are going to be fine, but the D-shape, you're going to have to clamp it this way, and because of the shape of this, even if you were to be comfortable clamping the side, the shape of it, and I'm going to put a photo of this, isn't awesome for creating a really good grab, because the inside is just too narrow. You can orient it for a top tube or the seat post grab. It is friction based. It does not use teeth. So that is something to consider. So let's go ahead and grab the fat bike. This is a relatively light stand, so we'll see what happens. I'm going to tighten this up because it doesn't throw. Hopefully that's about right. So it's in there, it's holding it. The driveway is at a slight slant here, so this isn't completely the best scenario for that. But the back post wants to come up, but I think we could probably fix that by changing the orientation of the stand a little bit, so that you put most of the weight on one post. And yeah, that totally fixes it. So that's pretty good. So the weight is not a concern here. So this is the Park Tool PCS 10. It's about $230. This is an optional component. I think this is about 40 or 50 bucks extra. So this is not cheap at all. You can move it in the seat post like you have it here to the top tube like that. This is used as friction, and this is my stand, so there's potential for bias here, but also I know it the best. So when I say that there are some issues with the way the friction grabs, there's issues here and there's issues here with the interface between the different components, the post and the clamp. I solve those using carbon assembly paste, but obviously you shouldn't have to do that. It should just work. And so that is a problem, but once you put a little bit of carbon assembly paste into this interface and the interface inside of here, it does sort the issue just fine. This works perfectly well with D-shaped seat posts, so that's not a problem. I use it on my tarmac all the time. There's a throw here, so let's measure that. That's 60. Close it up. It goes to 36.7, so quite a bit of clamping motion there. What is that, 23.2 millimeters. You can change the orientation from side to side. You can change the orientation up and down. Make sure that's nice and tight. And let's go grab the fat bike. Oops. One of the things I really like about this stand is that it is fairly stable. You can be pretty rough with it because it weighs a lot. It stays in one place. It has a very good tripod design. It's a really good stand aside from the issues here and there. So the goal here wasn't to pick a winner, but more to just kind of walk through the different stands and what they can do and some of the good things and some of the bad things. I don't think it'd be right for me to pick a winner because obviously I have a horse in the race. You just kind of have to go with the thing that best suits your budget and meets the criteria that you have for the different bikes that you work on. So hopefully you found that useful. If you did, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Any questions or comments, leave them below, and I will get to them as soon as I can. Thanks. So one of the things that was really interesting is I asked people to bring some of their edge case bikes, and I didn't end up using them because I think that having the tarmac and the fat bike was good enough. But this is one edge case, this tri-bike or TT bike. Because of the seat post size, there isn't a bike stand here that can actually grab the seat post. Some of them will go wide enough to grab it, but none of them will fit in this space or this space. So they're all too big this way, even if they'll grab the seat post. So the only way to grab this bike is on the top tube. And this is a carbon bike, so that's kind of a kind of thing. I didn't really know how to use that in the video, but I do think it's kind of interesting that if you have a bike like this, you might need to not use a clamping bike stand, period. You might need to use one of the tray kind that fits from the bottom bracket to the front fork. So just something to be aware of if you have a bike like this. Hey, so this is Future Andrew. After cutting the video and showing it to my friends so they could all put their comments and everything in, two things came up. One of them is that while I talked about the throw, this distance, I didn't talk about why that's important. And so I'm going to show you why it's important. Basically, it makes it easier to get non-round seat posts, bikes, in and out of the clamp. So here's a tarmac, D-shaped seat post. Here you can see how easy it is to get in to this space Whereas if you had a smaller throw, it might be difficult to get it in. You might have to kind of put the bike in sideways, turn it in order to do that. But basically, you just kind of put the bike in, and then you can do that, and it's mostly held, and then tighten it a little bit. And so that's why throw is a super important number, because it just makes it so much easier to work with a bike with a non-round seat post. The other thing that I showed but didn't discuss was seat post clamping versus top tube clamping. On a carbon bike, you should never clamp the top tube unless you absolutely cannot do it any other way. And the reason for that is that carbon tubes are not meant to be, they're not strong in this direction. They're only strong in this direction. And so if you compress this, if you torque, you put torque on the bike while you're working on it, even a little bit of torque, you can crush the post. And while it's possible to crush a seat post, this is like a $200 part, whereas this, if I were to pay full retail for it, is a $4,500 part. And it's also a lot more difficult to crush the seat post because it's actually, on most bikes, it's the thing that is designed to take those loads as long as you apply the load this way.
Why don't you do more like Doug, a little more Doug DeMuro? You gotta stand out in this day and age of the internets.
I struggle with creating the personality to attract people to my channel. I'm still working on that.
It's not repulsive. You are attractive.
Uh-huh. Thanks, Bill.
You just have to like spice it up. Let's spice it.
Yeah, I know. I struggle with that because it's one of the things that really annoys me about Doug DeMuro. It's also something that really annoys me about a lot of the channels that are out there. Is like there's all this like the way that they get views is repugnant to me.
Oh, okay. He's got 10 million.
I know. Yeah, that's the thing is that like, but I can't just go from like I can't sell out and get rich right away. I have to sell out and like swallow that just to roll the dice to potentially have that problem.
I don't think you have